Um, this idea came about um, because we had hired Nathan and Nathan.Works and his team for some of our production videos where we work in southern Mexico in the state of Oaxaca. And I even had to be interviewed for the film, and I was absolutely petrified because I knew nothing about film. I was a little bit resistant about my part in the film. And after the interview, I thought I did absolutely horrible. And I couldn't believe when I actually saw the finished version of, even through my nervousness of being interviewed for the film, it got put together and really was such a nice representation of our programs. And that kind of catapulted the idea into, SAFSF has a lot of difficult policy to understand, and they work in spaces that um, I honestly don't know too much about. And I thought maybe something that could be presented to a larger audience and would have a film aspect would be really nice. And part of the impetus for that was maybe to create something that they could show at the NASDA forum, the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture, to showcase the work in a way that was, easily approachable and very presentable. That's how the idea originally came about.
Were there any challenges that you saw or anything that particularly surprised you about how this film came together?
Yeah, well, one of the best parts as a funder is I actually had to do very little work. Um, the unique part about this was a partnership between three main organizations and a lot of other parts. It involved all of our boards of directors and production crews, but really, once Nathan.Works and SAFSF folks were introduced, I just got to kind of step back and watch the magic happen. And that was, as a funder with all kinds of other, irons in the fire, that was a very nice thing to have happen. I really love how the film came out. It evolved in a very natural way. And originally, Masika was not going to be necessarily in the film. She was going to be the voiceover narrator, but it just kind of evolved into having her tell the storyline in the film, which I think has a really approachable way of looking at it. And so I was surprised. I saw it for the first time at the screening at the SAFSF forum, and I just really loved it. I think it turned out really well. So as a funder, I was very impressed, and I can't wait to work on a sequel.
I love that. Thanks, Stefan. Thanks again to the Vatheuer Family Foundation for underwriting this film project. Renee, could you
It's
tell
our
us
pleasure.
a little bit more about SASF's connection to Digging In and how this project came to be from our side?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thanks everybody for joining us this evening. I know some of you have seen it, saw it at the forum with us. So thanks for seeing it again, but I know a lot of you all have seen it for the first time here. So we're really excited to have you here. And Stefan just mentioned kind of putting us together with Nathan.Works and then watching the magic unfold. He left out the part that magic took about, maybe 2.5, 3 years to unfold, and didn't happen kind of snap like that. But as he said, I mean, this was Stefan's idea. He had seen the power of video in his work and then offered it to us because he could see the potential for us. And, as sometimes happens with nonprofits and funders, we were offered something it wasn't necessarily in our plan of work that we were going to do. We have never done a film, didn't really know what it would entail. But so we had to trust Stefan's intention of what he was trying to do for and with us, and the experience that he had and how transformative that was for him, and that it could be transformative for us. And then Stefan also trusted our intention to learn how to use this tool or resource that he was offering us, but in alignment with the work that we were already trying to do. And I think that's what took us a little while to figure out, was like, how do we make this support some work that we are already working on with our members? And so as it came about, because our members work on such a wide range of issues, had recently decided to take a bit of a deeper dive on some of the more complex issues that underlie a lot of the work that funders do. And so that's where we got to the 3 topics that were featured in this film: land access, consolidation and concentration, and climate change. And so we were able to take these complex stories and at least bring people into them through film. It's a much more engaging way to present really complex topics like this. And we're not trying to say that we have all the answers or that we fully understand the issues, but we just wanted people to engage with them and to start conversations, and for funders to go deeper on topics that they may not necessarily be directly engaging with yet, and figure out how they connect to the work you're already doing, how you all can work together to further the systemic change that is going to be necessary to affect any of these 3 issues. And we wanted to make sure that we could tell a wide variety of stories, bring perspectives into this. We knew we couldn't get everywhere, we couldn't tell everything, but we're just super thrilled with the way it turned out and how much was able to be put into the film. And there's already been a question about kind of the distribution, and we're going to be real honest that we had to figure out how to just get it done first before we could start even thinking about, okay, now how do we actually distribute it out there? And that's what we've been working on for kind of this last month before we had this screening today. But we're going to be sharing, I think it's in the chat now, a page on our website that has a trailer for the film. It has some background about the film and the issues. It has links to the filmmakers and more information about the process that they took to present this, to produce this. And it also has a screening request form. So basically, the first step that we're taking for distribution is that we want to make this widely available for viewing by funders, by nonprofit organizations, by educational institutions, community groups. So we have a form. We want to be able to have some idea about like who's trying to watch it, who's holding screenings, where it's being shown, how far it's being spread. But we are going to make it available for free to nonprofits and community organizations. We're asking for funders to make a voluntary contribution that helps us to support kind of the honoraria that we paid to a lot of the folks who helped us, not only on screen, but with a lot of the research and some of the other costs involved with the distribution. But we are just really encouraging you to find ways to share this, find ways to share it with your grantees, share it in your communities, have your grantees get it and share it with their groups, whatever works. And you can also contact us if you're interested in having, some participation by SAFSF or Stefan or the filmmakers in it. We won't be able to, go to all of the things, but we're just really excited to see it get out there in the world. So with that, I think I will just, I did want to say, and we are looking at how we can try to bring this to one of the NASDA meetings in the coming year as well. So that's the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture that Stefan mentioned. And, it would be a real, it would be a real pinnacle to the work we've been doing for the last few years to just try to bring different perspectives into those conversations, to be able to bring something like this, which is engaging and tells a very balanced story, to open up some of those conversations. So stay tuned for that screening, Stefan.
Thank you, Renee. Now that we've heard from the philanthropy side of things, let's take it over to our film director, Nathan Johnson, and hear a little bit about the behind the scenes work that went into creating Digging In. What goes into developing a film like this, Nathan?
It's been amazing to have access to like the rich membership of SAFSF's community. I would say that's probably the thing that really makes it what it is on screen. Is we began with a series of conversations with SAFSF, shortly within the first month of production, provided to us a list of contacts of organizations and of people that they wanted us to talk to. And that list of 40 or so contacts that Jay and I then set about to have background calls with was really influential in setting the tone for what we were going to do in the production. We're filmmakers, we're not farmers, we're not working in farm policy. And so there's a lot of learning that we had to do along the way, and the generosity of that community was just very we also, we went through a sort of a hard winnowing down process from that group of 40 to begin to determine where we were going to go. We wanted to have some geographical representation. There was certain demographic representation that we wanted to include, and had to make some hard choices to leave out some stories that we've flagged for the sequel. So that was all this pre-production process. Those 3-4 months there of learning and writing. Also, during which time we casted Masika as a host, and quickly learned that she was going to play a bigger role than that, as she started to look over our scripts and documents and help us out with the process of shaping the story more than just being on-screen talent. And then we got to actually travel and shoot and become fast friends as well. So that was really cool. This also comes, I think Renee mentioned, after nearly 2 years of figuring out what this project was even going to be, and a lot of writing proposals and film ideas and going back and forth around that. And that's where I think SAFSF's guiding it towards those 3 focus areas gave us some much needed guardrails on the project. Me and Jay especially came in with sky's the limit in terms of what you can make a film about food on, and food being this kind of thing that touches nearly every human activity. We could have made a film about almost everything. So those guardrails gave us a little bit of direction. And then I would just say that the being on site, the shooting that we did was just a beautiful experience. I mean, these communities that we and the places that we went were just once in a lifetime sort of opportunities to be there during the buffalo hunt, and to receive the hospitality of the folks in mid-Missouri there. It's just it just goes to show how again, how rich the community that SAFSF is a part of, and the passion of people that work on this issue. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Nathan. You mentioned your friendship with Masika, and we'll send it over to her with questions about moments in filming that opened your eyes to these issues. In what way have you not thought about them prior that changed during this film process?
Yeah, thank you, Maggie, and thank you, Nathan. I will say, having, being someone who was on the funder side previously in my life, getting out there and doing this whole film that just was so eye-opening in general, because as a funder, sometimes you can sit back and you can read all you want about the issues, or you can talk to folks, you have a Zoom call or a phone call, but until you're there and you're actually seeing the land and the folks and talking with them, it just kind of changes the perception. And I think it's more, for me, the experience was really reinforcing some of the challenges and the realities of this work and of communities that we're all working with. When I think about the different issues that we talk about in the film too, I mean, the land piece, obviously land is pretty much all these issues are connected, and land is that number one sort of focal point there. And when we were in Kansas and visiting folks in Nicodemus, I was pretty blown away by how connected to the land everybody was, thinking about all these folks that are the descendants from the original settlers there, and that they come back every year. That was very powerful for me, and really reinforcing connection to land. And then talking to Latif, as you all saw there was a part that happened during that part of the film that actually didn't make it into the film, but during the time we were there with him. And we've talked about it as a team, all of us that worked on the film. But the person who Latif had to sell his land to actually drove up while we were there and said, like, what are you doing, or something like that. What are y'all doing here? And I didn't realize he was the current landowner. And so just that, piece of like this land, this power that had been sort of taken away from Latif, and then someone else had it. And the fact that Latif was still persevering through all of this. I think that's a story that I think obviously a lot of people can tell, and a lot of Black landowners, Black land farmers can tell. And it just really kind of, opened my eyes more and made me more connected to that. And just also how important it is for us to tell these stories. I think that was that. It's like I was glad we were able to get all these stories out there and sort of have folks be able to tell their experiences in their own voice and showing it to us. So yeah, I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thanks, Masika. And we'll take it back to Nathan. Some of these questions have already started to pop into the chat, but wondering about next steps for digging in the film, and what do you care to share about screenings and those sort of things?
Yeah, absolutely. This film, we're really to have it seen really widely, and Renee already mentioned that a key audience for this is the advocacy and action community, the nonprofit community that we see in SAFSF's membership, as well as organizations just in the space. And so making that freely available to them is definitely a priority. Also, in the chat was asked and then answered that we are going to screen the communities part of filming it, already for us from the beginning, to make sure to bring it back to Rosebud Indian Reservation, as well as mid-Missouri and the others as well there. But we also do want to see this make it to, or maybe that's a personal career goal of mine, but I think it's also a great way to make sure that it's widely accessible. And so we're working on gaining representation, like an agent to help with that process. And also putting together our plan to submit festival distribution, trying to be judicious about the kinds of film festivals we submit to. There's certain film festivals that are well with the topic and bring an audience that we think needs to and should see this. And then all of this, I was asked to also share our film website, which is digginginthefilm.com. Somebody might have already put that in the chat. It's sort of our filmmakers backstop, the same way that the website is for SAFSF's sort of like go-to link there. They provide the same thing and connect to the same people, but that our film page. And then, when I think about next steps, I think a lot about what we didn't get to share in this, what we didn't get to cover. This is an agriculture film more than anything, and there's so much on the closer to the consumer side of the food system that I think is really interesting and really worth exploring. So if I select what the next film would be, it would be a food film. If this is an ag film, that would be a food film. And I just really look forward to working with this team and anybody else who wants to be a part of that to see how we can bring that to life. We've learned a lot on the process, and I think we're just going to be so much better at it the second time.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nathan. Now we'll open it up to the audience for questions y'all have. Feel free to just unmute yourself and you can ask them to anybody on the panel.
Well, I'll ask a question of y'all in the audience, and would love to hear from the funders on the call if you have thoughts about how you might use this film, or if there are any other supports or resources you feel like you would need from SAFSF to make it easier for you to use this film, or to help you, distribute it or use it in your communities. Anything that we can do to help get it out there.
This is Amy from the Vatheuer Family Foundation. I would love to share the film with some of my grantees. I think they might be interested in hosting screenings in their communities. And one thing that would be helpful is if there's some sort of little blurb about, what the film is, how folks, I know that there's a page on the SAFSF website where people can express their interest, but if you all put together an email that I could just send along to my grantees who I think would be interested, that would make it a very light lift for me to be able to invite folks in.
That's a great idea. Do other folks have other ideas of how we can help us get this film out there?
This is Sam from the 11th Hour Project. I don't have a lot of advice from the funder standpoint, but I used to work in motion picture and worked a lot in documentary. I definitely think getting a sales agent would be really helpful from the film distribution standpoint, just to help with the festival push, because a lot of it is sort of curated through relationships as well. So I think that's a good route to go in, and there's only a few companies that still do that. And also, if you guys don't have a social press sort of, I think there's a couple organizations that help action-oriented films gain traction. I can look some of them up, but that would be a great resource, just to know that there's other social information that's being shared. I know that that might be a separate fundraising push. The distribution process and the post process are such separate fundraising pushes from production. So just congratulations on getting the film through to this point. That's huge.
I see a question I see Paula. I see your question there, and good to see you on the call as well. Is your question directed to anyone, and is that directed to Masika?
Yeah, hi. Directed to Masika, or if anyone else wants to chime in that was a part of creating the film. Thank you.
Hi, Paula. I was actually just reading your question here. I didn't get to see it when you put it up there. Let's see. So you're asking about what opportunities we see for multiracial solidarity through some of the aspects that were brought up in the film. I actually want to think about that a little bit more, and I might want to ask Jay. I know you're on the call, but I want to see if you have any thoughts on that before I say anything.
Jay, if you hop in, please introduce yourself. Jay was a really key part of making this film happen.
He's currently not in a place where he can speak. He's got a lot of background noise, so I'm gonna kick it back to Masika.
Just saw that in the chat. Thanks, Nathan.
Okay, thanks. I will say what was, I think, an interesting moment for me too was when we were at the Rosebud Reservation. And when I first got there, we started talking, and we actually were talking about the connections between Black folks and Indigenous folks, and how we need to come together more, because we have such a similar experience, obviously, in this country. And so I think there's something there as well. Like, I actually wanted to I would like to dig more into that, and kind of have, moments kind of open up some opportunities for us to have some more discussions. And then in general, just think about like where we can come together around these issues around land. So definitely appreciate that question. And I think you're inspiring me, Paula, to keep kind of pushing that and making some more things happen around that.
I would jump in to say that, we made the comment that we didn't get to go everywhere. Obviously there's a lot of stories similar to these happening in a lot of different parts of the country and in different communities. But I think something that was interesting about the number of stories that were in Missouri kind of gives a glimpse in that, consolidation is affecting, small and mid-sized farmers of, across communities. And it's an issue that seems like, folks like Wes Schumeyer would have in common with folks like Webb Davis and TJ. They are all fighting some of the effects of that, or at least recognizing the effects that are there and what is really sustainable long term. So I think the more that we would look into things like that, we would probably find more opportunities for that kind of multiracial solidarity.
Absolutely. I had the thought of just all those community stories definitely make me think of people I know that remind me of the characters in the film, but also how those issues hit home for each of us in different ways. What other questions or curiosities do y'all have about the film, or questions for Stefan as a funder? This room is filled with funders, so maybe you want to pick his brain on what it's like to do a media project. Anything is on the table.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna fill up the space here again, but I'm gonna say that, as has been mentioned, there is some interest in doing another film, in seeing what other issues we can illuminate in this way. And we are kind of a deliberative group at SAFSF, so it's not like we're jumping into it tomorrow. We are definitely taking some lessons learned from this one, but we do feel like there is another project like this that could be in our future. And we'd love to hear from funders who might be interested in, kind of joining up with Stefan to help us do that, and do it in, in a way that that goes even further than what we did with this film, and that where we can be very thoughtful and very deliberate and intentional from the beginning about how we can distribute it and how we can get it out into more communities, and how we can really use it as an effective tool to help push change. So yeah, we would appreciate your help in distributing it, and then we would appreciate help when we get to another point in perhaps funding another project.
Thanks, Renee. And I'll just go ahead and wrap us up and give us some time back today. Thank you guys again for joining us. We really appreciate the turnout.